This is Becky LaPlante in beautiful downtown Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and I'm delighted to welcome everyone to today's webinar. This is the fourth in a series of 4 pre-broadband conference webinars leading up to the 2011 Broadband Conference, Policy in Progress, Border-to-Border Broadband, which will take place in Duluth on November 16th and 17th. It's my pleasure to introduce today's presenters, Mark Adams, Matt Grose, and they're both from the Itasca Area Schools Collaborative, otherwise known as IASC, and Paul Thon from Cisco. Mark Adams currently serves as the Superintendent of Schools for District 316 and District 319. He is a graduate of Greenway High School and did his undergraduate work at Morehead State University and his graduate work through the University of St. Thomas. Mr. Adams began his teaching career in Bismarck, North Dakota, where he taught middle school health and physical education. His responsibilities also included head hockey and assistant football coaching. Mark then accepted a position at Bemidji State University as an adjunct faculty member in education, graduate student, and assistant hockey coach to BSU legend Mr. Bob Peters. Mark then accepted a position with Grand Rapids Public Schools where he taught physical education and coached in both the football and hockey programs. He served as an elementary principal for 2 years in Hibbing, a high school principal for 4 years in Nashwauk-Keewatin, and then moved to an assistant principal position in Grand Rapids High School. Mark is committed to public education and 21st century learning. He shares a passion for ongoing improvement to how we serve the families, students, and community members of the Itasca area. So I think what I'll do is I'll stop with the introductions there, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the floor over to Mark, who will do an introduction to IASC. And then when we turn the floor over to Paul, I'll do his introduction. So Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Becky, and welcome to everybody who is out there listening and taking part in the webinar. As Becky mentioned, I'm Mark Adams, currently the Shared Superintendent of the Greenway and Nashwauk-Keewatin Schools, and a member of the IASC, or Itasca Area Schools Collaborative. Itasca Area Schools Collaborative began back in 1987-88 as a Quad County telecommunications project. It was a statewide effort to do and improve communications and accessibility through a series of networks, fiber, providing educational opportunities, providing staff development, with long-term goals of using technology as another venue for educational delivery. In the Quad County era, there was a group of superintendents, a group of leaders who had the wisdom and the foresight to basically ensure that we had this asset in Quad County, which is now morphed or grown into IASC. So we certainly recognize those people in the past who had the vision to put in play the fiber that we now have as an asset and continue to use, although updated and upgraded in order to meet the 21st century technology needs. As you will see on the slides, I'm just going to slide this forward here. The history and the development of the network itself went from Hibbing Community College all the way across the Iron Range, Nashwauk-Keewatin, Greenway, Itasca Community College, Grand Rapids, Hill City, Reamer, Deer River, Big Fork, and North Home. And again, as you'll see, the Quad County project was simply a network, a way to use technology as a catalyst for improving education. What has grown or developed as a tool, and for all of us in IASC, is a common set of themes, an opportunity to work together for a menu-driven system that allows us as independent individual school districts to share resources. The Telecom Original Project held principal meetings and collaborative course offerings for the small rural schools. It allowed us some connectivity, staff development, and helped build relationships to what has evolved into today, which is IASC. It certainly importantly provided us an asset in the region that allowed us now again to continually move forward with the technology necessary today to prepare our kids for college. as we have moved in or grown to IASC, we have come up with a common set of themes, a common set of goals or a vision that allow us, again, to move in and out of IASC, and I don't mean that as a partnership. We move in and out of IASC as to what fits for our individual or independent school districts. So it has been a fairly safe venue. It has been a true collaboration in that there are benefits to all partners. They may not happen at the same time, but they happen through, again, our efforts and our regular meetings and planning sessions. The IASC Collaborative continues to work together now in a more focused venue than we did in the Quad County era, from the 87, 88 era to today of 2005, when IASC was actually formed by a joint powers agreement. In the Quad County era, as we moved into the IASC partnership, we knew we needed to modify or change some of the things that we were looking to accomplish. And as we moved away from big types of services and big types of programs, we tried to focus our energies on the 4 or 5 areas that we knew would most impact students: teaching and learning, community, and obviously our independent school districts. So the history of IASC is continued. We are very proud now to say and deliver a product, a framework, a tool, if you will, that allows the 7 area school districts to continually grow, apply for grants, share educational services, share staff development, community education, and a host of other technology and a host of other services and programs. With that, I'm going to turn this over back to Becky for her to introduce the next presenter, and we'll answer questions if there are any.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Does anybody have any questions of Mark about the IASC collaboration before we go on? Okay, going. All right, hearing none, I'll remind you that you can type in the chat box if you have questions. And I would like to introduce now Paul Thon. For more than 13 years, Paul has been working in the telecommunications industry, working with customers in developing wide area networks, local area networks, and public switch telephone connectivity. The past 7 years have been solely focused on public sector customers, spending the majority of his time working with public schools in Minnesota on how technology is changing education. In addition, Paul sits on the Cisco Global Exchange that is made up of school districts within the United States that collaborate how technology can be used to create a 21st century school. And Paul is joining us from an undisclosed coffee shop location in Minnesota. So we'll go ahead and turn the floor over to Paul. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Becky. I do want to apologize if there's any background noise. I was making my way back down to Minneapolis here this morning, and I had to stop at a coffee shop. So, Becky, thanks for having me and asking me to join this call. What I wanted to focus in on today, guys, is talking about how Cisco and IASC have formed a partnership over the last, say, 24 plus months. Becky, and my slides are not appearing. Oh, here we go. I apologize. So one of the first things we started, I asked Cisco to be present at a meeting back in May of 2009. They realized that they needed to make a change and how they could start working together as a collaborative. So they asked Cisco to the table. That's when the Cisco IASC partnership truly started, was back in May of 2009. So we've come on this journey together, and one of the first things that we asked the IASC leadership team is these 3 questions: where are we now, where are we going, and what's next? And we posed those questions to the leadership team, and can anybody tell me what question you need to answer first? Does anybody want to chime in? And so, all right. Well, the first thing, the first question that you need to. Perfect. So Carl chimed in here in the chat, and he said, "Where are you going?" And that is absolutely correct. The first thing that the IAS leadership team had to do was figure out exactly where they were going. And so what we did is we invited the superintendents down to the Cisco office here in Minneapolis shortly after our meeting back in May of 2009 and did a technology day to show them what's possible, what other school districts are doing throughout the United States, and how technology is impacting the classroom. They took that back. They collaborated as a group. Then they sent down another group of the technology coordinators from the different school districts to come down and see what was possible, just see the technology in use. So that was done over a course of a 12-month time frame. And during that 12 months, we continued to work with the IAS leadership team, and we needed to figure out who was all in. We just couldn't have one superintendent or one school district saying they're in. We needed everybody in the sandbox together in order to make this a success. Over that 12-month period, the leadership team also identified key members within the school districts. We identified them as the internal champions. Who are those internal champions that could embrace this change and use the technology to impact the curriculum within the classroom? And one of the things that we're focusing on, and we're still focusing on today, is technology is changing the way students are learning, but at the end of the day, it's all about the students. We need to give that student access to the technology, to access to mobile devices, the internet, to distance learning. So at the end of the day, it's all about the student. So one of the key things too, after we spent almost a year identifying some challenges, internal champions, showing the team what's possible, we sat down as a group, my Cisco team, as well as the IAS team, and developed a common platform. We needed to develop a common platform that would allow for change. So the first thing we did is we went around to each school and took a look at their local area network and what was possible. And there were some school districts that actually had infrastructure hanging from the ceiling with oscillating fans blowing on it for its cooling. We knew the direction of this team, where they wanted to go. We needed to clean up that local area network because it all starts with the local area network. And if you don't have a solid infrastructure in place, the technology will not work properly within the school districts. So we standardized on that LAN infrastructure, as well as a common platform, a voice common platform. This was the key to allow the IAS group to increase efficiencies, improve productivity, and cross district boundaries. One of the key things about this leadership team, I want to point out that is a key to the success of the IAS, is there are superintendents or there are districts that have made a significant investment into this common platform that are not even using that technology today. For example, we put in that common voice platform that is shared and it's being housed in Grand Rapids Public Schools in their data center. You have Matt that made that investment into that common platform. However, he is not even using that platform for voice communications, for voicemail today. He is using the common platform for his telepresence, which they have rolled out for their distance learning. just wanted to point that out. Then moving on, one of the key things that we worked with is the transformation framework within IAS. Here are the basic steps that we took with our partnership. Is the IAS team realized that they needed to change. So we worked with them on establishing the common language, and they developed what their vision was. So they set their vision. Then we identified barriers within that vision. And one of the things that the IAS Collaborative has done is they have aligned their bell schedule. So for all these school districts to be on the same bell schedule, the same calendar for the school year, has allowed for this change to take place and allow them to start using resources across the collaborative. Then we put a plan in place. We've adopted the plan, and we've implemented the plan. And over the course of this 24-plus month journey, nothing was implemented or took place within their infrastructure for over 15 months. 15 months was all planning and developing that vision before we implemented one piece of equipment. This past summer, the IAS Consortium has implemented Cisco telepresence so they could cross district boundaries and offer distance learning within the collaborative. So really what the IAS Collaborative has done with Cisco is we've created that network convergence. We've allowed for the common data architecture, the collaboration architecture, the network architecture, as well as a key thing here is when we talk with the member school districts, we all are talking the same vocabulary. What does immersive mean to Matt or Mark? When I say immersive, the immersive classroom, we are all on the same page. So as we're talking technology and we're talking about how that technology impacts the students, we're all talking that same common vocabulary. So, that was just the quick high-level overview of what Cisco and IAS has done over the past 2.5 years. So at this time, I can open it up to any questions if someone wants to dig in more to some of the steps that we've taken. I'll be more than happy to answer that, and I'll pass the ball back to you, Becky. Becky? Whoops.
Oh.
Becky?
Hello, Paul?
Yeah, I was all finished. I just wanted to open it up for any questions to the group, or you can take over the ball and pass it on to Matt.
Great, thanks a lot. My phone dropped off, so I was in a little bit of a panic mode, but Jackie was reassuring me that everybody could still hear you. All right. We're going to go ahead then and pass the floor over to Matt Grose. And Matt has served as superintendent for Deer River Public Schools since 2006. Prior to taking the high school principal job in Deer River in 2004, Matt taught math and computer science in the Twin Cities area. His master's degree in education is from St. Mary's University, and his principal and superintendent certification, as well as a certification in school technology leadership, are from the University of Minnesota, where he is pursuing his doctorate with interests in leadership, technology, the effects of poverty, American Indian issues, and resilience. Matt also chairs the Itasca Area School Collaborative, who you're hearing about right now today. And I don't know if Mark said the mission, but I'll re-say the mission of IASC is collaborating to effectively and efficiently educate all learners. Some of IASC's work has resulted in inter-district collaboration in the areas of early childhood, technology, staff development, curriculum, and workforce development. And with that, Matt, I'll go ahead and hand the controls over to you.
Great. Thanks, Becky. Again, thanks for joining us today for the webinar. This picture represents IASC leadership's philosophy that all of our kids are all of our kids, that every child in our region, and you saw a picture of the map a little bit earlier, that every child in the region is equally important and deserves the same great opportunities, and the success in every district is important to our entire region. We are really firm in our belief that zip codes shouldn't determine a student's opportunity or possibility for success. Through working with our partners at Cisco, this is where IASC has landed on mission, vision, and kind of an overarching component. And again, focusing on learners, being trusted provider in the Itasca area, and achieving educational transformation with some real specific strategies. And I can come back to this slide if it's really important, but I really want to focus on some of the strategies because this is what's driving some of the work that we're talking about today. As Mark talked about earlier, the focus of Quad County when IASC first started was about process. It was about stuff that was in the ground or some real technical type issues, and our focus now is on curriculum learning because that's our core business. And I'm not sure what businesses you are all in, but hopefully you have that very well identified and defined what your core business is. And ours is teaching and learning, curriculum instruction and assessment as kind of key components of that. And we believe that these strategies together help us be laser-like in our focus on those things. Just again to highlight some of the things that our work together, our relationships have enabled us to work together on. This is a list and it could be longer. We share a number of staff. We've started programs. These aren't just things that we've participated in. An example is in our online learning program. We started our own online learning program. It grew from 8 districts to 46, from 30 kids to over 1,000 enrollments, from 5 classes to 50. And there are 46 districts in the state of Minnesota participating with us in our online learning program. We've consolidated and landed on common website platforms so we can consolidate support, we can consolidate expertise and share trainings, and we've done the same thing with an email system. We 2 years ago had 7 different email systems in our region. Now we have standardized on 1. And we've also are taking advantage of some cost savings relative to purchasing a data warehouse together. Our current projects, Paul kind of mentioned this common core that we've all invested in, and I think what makes our project unique is that school boards from that are 50 or all the way down to Floodwood, even farther in miles away, have invested in equipment that doesn't sit in their district, and I think that's pretty rare. Much of the equipment in the core is sitting in the 4th floor of Grand Rapids High School, and my school board will never see it, even though it's spent lots of money on that core. But we know that without that core, we're going to be unable to function in the way that we need to. And like Paul also mentioned, some of the components of that equipment are things that we're not currently taking advantage of. My board bought into the voice core. We're not using that core right now. We will be when we make a conversion and when we need to update our own IP phones. But it was important that we pushed our chips into the middle. I think a real good example of our work together is our immersive classrooms. This is a picture of what our immersive classrooms look like in the Itasca area. Currently there are 3 rooms like this, one in Deer River, one in Nashwauk-Keewatin, and one in Northland Reamer. On the 3 screens that you see in the middle of the picture, those are high-def screens, and those students are not all from the same district. I think one of those screens represents students from Northland Reamer, or at least could. The environments are very controlled so that it looks like you're in the same room. The screens are high-def, the sound is stereo, and the mics are voice-activated, so it feels like you're in the same room together. And if you have a memory of what ITV or that type of system feels like when you're in a meeting, you can throw that away because this is a different experience for the kids, and they really like it. We've tried to communicate to people when they walk into the room because Deer River, for instance, is a district of 850 kids in a very impoverished area of the state. Northland Reamer and Nashwauk-Keewatin are not unlike that. And it's great for people to walk in and see this room, but what is different is what's happening in this room and what's happening because of this room. These kids in Deer River are experiencing a learning environment with kids from across the region. The kids in Nashwauk and Northland had no Spanish teacher available to them, so their options were, we don't have Spanish as a high school student, which to all of us was unacceptable in the region. And so that was one of the events that compelled this. Are there any questions about the system? I see Dale asked about the telepresence room and how it works with ITV, or what differences there are. We had ITV in almost all of our districts, and when the fiber went in the ground in 1987, that was pretty much the sole purpose and reason why, or function for that that fiber. Back in 1987, nobody really knew what to do with a pipe that big, and so we were using ITV. But over time, the equipment became more and more difficult to operate. When you're trying to hold a class like this of 18 kids in an ITV room looking at a single screen with cameras that are not of that great quality and sound that isn't of that great quality, the experience that the kids have is for sure not lifelike and for sure not engaging. They call this immersive, and that's what it feels like. The instructor in this picture is, let's see if I can, is right here. It looks like her back is two of these back row students, which it is. It doesn't just look like it. It is generally the training that we received from the company that we used for the install. The training teaches about how to train in this immersive environment, and generally the teacher will sit at an angle here so that she can see not only the students on her left but the students on her right that are in her room. As you can see, I think across the room here, or on the screens, there's no, I don't think there are any adults in that room. So in Nashwauk, which is 50 miles away, probably 45 miles away from Deer River, these students are that far away from the instructor. What we found, and what the teacher has found, it was actually her preference that there wasn't an adult in that room, because if the adult was in that room, it made the students feel like that's where the management of their behavior was coming from, not the teacher, not the actual teacher. And so she preferred that there wasn't an adult in the room. We do have an adult in the room in different situations where we know there could potentially be an issue with behavior, and we also have kind of a hot button phone right next to her, so that if there's an issue, she can immediately contact an administrator in the other building to respond to an issue that might be in the room. There are also cameras that are capturing what's happening in the room, so we have a view that way. Any other questions about that immersive experience? All right. One of the other things we've done as a collaborative is form a 21st century learning team that's made up of teachers and administrators, curriculum specialists, technicians, and students from across all of the area districts with some specific goals. One is to develop some data and evaluation frameworks so that we can identify those areas where we're making progress and areas where we're not, where we're able to move metrics around reading and math and other achievement data that's being enabled or enhanced by technology. Another focus is 21st century learning environments, essentially what's happening in the classroom, to examine devices, how are we going to support these new learning environments, how do we create the opportunities for teachers to feel supported, because we've learned that whether, in a business perspective, that end user, if they don't feel supported, that transition or that change is going to be very difficult, and it's very much the same way with teachers. We've identified a need to land on a learning management system where we can house all of our curriculum so that in a situation like that immersive environment where those students in Nashwauk, 50 miles away, are taking a Spanish class, we have a place online in the cloud where they can access the curriculum that they need to, and there's not paper shuffling, because it seems very foolish to be shuffling paper in a 21st century learning environment like that. And then also they're looking at the best system that we could find for a video and lesson repository, a place where a student at home could view their lesson again from that day, or if they were sick or at home or on vacation, where a teacher could share lessons with someone across the region to for professional development purposes, or where they could watch their own lesson. One of the other areas is extended learning time. We have students that are on buses for long periods of time, as long as an hour and a half or maybe a little bit even longer. And that's an extremely long time for kids, and up until now has been pretty wasted time. So we're trying to capture that time by either looking at options for loading content on devices, or we've talked about wireless on buses, but there are definitely challenges with that in our area. We also have a session or a group looking at staff development, and we have a summer institute for training our staff, and also a multi-district day that we're utilizing to raise the level of all of our staff's competency. Had a question from Teresa: how did your teachers react to online learning? What were some of the obstacles with staff, and how do you support and train staff to adapt to new technologies? That's a great question. Sometimes I think that when you have a situation that is unfortunate, or that there are no other answers to, people are a lot more willing to change, and that I think was part of the case with online. I'm getting some interesting feedback. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay. Our online program started small, and at first it was viewed as a threat, I think, among some of our staff. Over time, because we built it ourselves, we were focused on using our staff and curriculum that we developed so that we could keep the level of quality high. And so we made a commitment to that. We have a training institute that we send all of our trainers through to give them experience not only in online learning pedagogy, but also in interacting with the environment. So teaching in an online environment in itself requires a different set of skills, and our teachers are all trained in that, and they actually become an online student for part of that course, so they can feel what it's like to be a student in that environment. Let's see, back to the slide. We're also currently working on finishing up our network upgrades. We, like Paul said, we landed on some standardization and upgrade. The reason why that was important for us is we wanted our closets in our different buildings, and I don't know how many there are, if there are 15 or how many buildings in our region, but we wanted those closets to be basically the same, so that the technician in Deer River could move around from building to building and know what he was looking at, and be able to work on that equipment. And they went to the labeling level. I'm not sure they're completed yet, but when it's done, all those wires hanging out of those switches and closets will all be labeled in identical ways, so that those technicians can move from place to place. We also had access to some really high-level training from Cisco, and so we're getting some real specialized training for people, and also doing some cross-training. So in Deer River, my tech coordinator has had the number of devices he's supporting multiply by a factor of probably 6 in the last 15 years, and he's had his support dwindle from having two helpers to none, because of budget. And so he's had to become a master of a million different things, and if you talk to your techs, I'm sure they'll tell you the same thing. We're hoping that through this collaboration that we can develop some expertise among our different techs in our districts and share those people, so that those technicians feel like they have a good handle on everything that they're doing. Any questions about anything else on this slide? All right. as we look to the future, we're going to continue to expand our enterprise model network. I want to be Matt Grose no matter what building I'm in the entire region, and I should be able to authenticate and have access to everything the exact same, whether I'm in my district or any of the other districts or buildings, and I think that's coming in April, it sounded like last night. We're going to continue to work on those learning environments. I mentioned that. Safety and security is another issue that we're focused on. Merging camera systems, magnetic locks, card swipes, those kinds of things that we can manage remotely and centrally, and grant access to the people who need access, whether it's a emergency responder pulling up in their squad or a principal who is 100 miles away and needs to be able to access a camera in their building or unlock a door potentially even. I talked a lot about technology. Our focus is using that as an enabler, and I think it's easy to get caught up in staring at the shiny stuff that technology is and can do, but again, we're focused on what it is, what it can do, and what can happen because of it. As we look outside of IASC, we've begun asking the question about how do we engage our partners in our communities, our partners in city county government, nonprofits, businesses, other entities that need the same types of things that we need, and how do we work with them to enhance not only what they're doing but what we're doing, and where those needs kind of are coming together. This is a slide that represents sort of our thoughts over the next 5 years that we're working on. We actually use this in a grant application that we were awarded. You can look, as you see on here, it's very little about technical pieces. It's more about philosophy or things that we're going to just be working on or be thinking about. A couple things I think we've learned. I think everybody thinks they know what collaboration is, and I think we've learned over the last few years that we don't always. We've learned that collaboration is messy. It's hard work. It means not always winning at the same rate or at the same time. That you have to do some things because you might win in a year or in 6 months, not because you're going to win now. And it requires coming back to the table over and over and over again, even though it might not be easy, and but just because you believe in what could happen. We've found good partners, and that's been key. We've had a good partner in the Blandett Foundation, not just from the standpoint of they've supported us in some financial capacity, but because they have opened up some opportunities to us and been good advisors and conveners of thought and leadership. Cisco has been a great partner, and a lot of people want to sell things to school districts and probably your business. What we found is that we can't settle for a vendor-vendee relationship. We need to find people who can arrange for us to get equipment, but also are willing to push our mission forward and be invested with us for the long term. Find people to work with that are that believe or need some of the same things as you do, and then for some compelling events to spur transformation. Our compelling event around the immersive classroom was that we were going to have 50 or 60 kids in our region that weren't going to have Spanish, and we needed to do something about that, and we did. And as a result of that compelling event, we also ended up being able to offer Ojibwe language to some students, and so we have kids being able to get some great language training, and that's just the beginning. We thought we were going to have that room busy 2 hours of the day, and it turned out that it's busy all hours of the day except one now. And that compelling event, that language shortage, also compelled, as Paul mentioned, bell schedule change. And I don't know if you have sacred cows in your business, but in school districts, bell schedules can be sacred cows. And we had kicked around the idea of getting on a common bell schedule for a long time, but not until we absolutely had to do it. Did it happen, and once we had to do it, it happened in the matter of a week. And so we have districts across the area on a common bell schedule. And again, Grand Rapids, the biggest district in the whole region, doesn't have a telepresence unit this year, but they changed their bell schedule. They had to arrange their bus schedule, even though they're not participating yet, but because they're committed to it. And then being bold and taking risks is something else we've learned that's going to be crucial to our work moving forward. I think that's the end of my part. If there are any questions, I'd certainly be willing to pop those. Or if Mark, if you had other pieces that you'd like to add or chime in on, and or Paul.
Matt, this is Mark, and I will just add in summary to what you talked and discussed about IASC. As this happened, we certainly came together because there was a storm, Minnesota state budget crisis. There were challenges in districts, declining enrollment, aging facilities. But we all agreed, as Matt indicated earlier, that the high priority and the only priority was going to continue to be how do we serve all of our region's kids? How do we come up with a single campus concept, and I say that conceptually only, where we have access to one another's very best educators, very best courses, very best educational opportunities in partnership with higher education, and or as we grow, national and international organizations that can add to the richness of our curriculum. So I would just appreciate Matt's comments there, and just know that as we continue to build IASC to what it can be, that we continue to look at kids as our highest priority and finding ways to ensure that they are ready for college.
All right, thanks, Mark. I think for a little context, too, for people that aren't familiar with our area, this isn't an area of means, and it's very large. Our districts added together probably cover about 3,000 square miles. If you need to let that sink in a little bit, that would probably cover from Northfield to North Branch and a lot of area in between. It's an extremely large geographic area. 4 of the districts in IASC have free or reduced lunch, over 60% of people qualifying, and connectivity isn't consistent. In some areas, we're fortunate to have Paul Bunyan Communications that has fiber to the home, and in some areas, like one of our attendees lives, her options are dial-up, which isn't very good, and satellite, which isn't very good, and it's expensive. So we have a range of opportunities, and so the school districts, I think, become even that much more important as a hub for learning and opportunity for not only our kids, but our families and our communities. Any comments or questions?
This is Bill Coleman. I'm wondering about what you see then as the future of, the IASC network of schools in terms of future use of technology or future cost savings through operations and so on.
Do you want to take that, Mark?
Yeah, I'll take that one. Again, this is Mark Adams, and I'm the shared superintendent. We represent 2 districts in IASC. And when you're talking about cost savings, economies of scale, we would be representative of a small-scale IASC. Some of the things we're doing, I have a shared business manager. We'll have, end of November, a shared business office located right between the 2 districts with a common or a shared payroll, receivable, payable, and we're doing that under the umbrella of a purchase service agreement. So both districts will basically operate a business office. I will be able to do that with less staff, less human resource, similar to what Matt mentioned in the technology world and realm. When we standardize our closets and equipment, that allows us to use our human resource at a much higher level and more efficient level. The 2 districts I represent will continue. We share activities now, some of our extracurriculars. We have shared staff in the past. So those are some of the economies of scale. I have a single transportation company for both districts, and we've just accomplished those things the last 2 years. This is my just over 2 years now as a shared. Prior to that, I was in Nashua Keewat. And so I think what we represent is a mini IASC, and we will continue to move forward and find ways to be more efficient. The superintendents, the administration, the boards, the communities are all supportive of finding ways to be more effective, more efficient with our resources so that we are not reducing or making reductions near kids in classrooms.
There's a question from Candy, and it's public, so I'm assuming you can all see it and read it. I think that's exactly what we're doing. I think we are dancing in the rain in IASC. I think the human nature is when things get bad to crawl in your shell or to dig a moat around your castle and hope that things turn out okay and that you weather the storm. And I think that IASC is taking the opposite approach internally at first to make sure that our core businesses and our core infrastructure is make us a partner or a good partner outside of the educational realm. And like I said in a slide a couple points back, I think that one of our next moves and in our strategic plan is about how do we connect with city-county government, how do we connect with the nonprofits that are sitting out there that need some tech support, need some tech help. How do we connect with them to enhance our business and enhance their business, to share the things that we have, to share the things that they have, to figure out how to be more efficient and effective together. So I think that's exactly what our approach has been, to be aggressive. We're finalists for a pretty large grant that is going to help us do some more infrastructure work, and we're looking forward to those conversations. I've been invited to be on the Itasca Economic Development Board's technology kind of landscape examination about what's out there and what do we need to be thinking about. And as a representative of all the school districts, I think there'll be a great opportunity there to dig deeper into what business and is doing, and certainly at the table with city and county government.
This is Becky. Are there any other questions for either Matt, Mark, or Paul this morning, or actually this afternoon? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and thank you, all three of you, Mark, Matt, and Paul, for sharing your experiences and your lessons learned, especially in the area of collaboration, really, isn't it? This marks the end of our pre-conference webinar series. Information about the 2011 Broadband Conference and all of the recordings of the pre-conference webinar series is at the Blandin Foundation website, which is broadband.blandinfoundation.org. And again, thank you all for sharing. I see Teresa has the last word. This is a great model to share statewide. So